Alright, everybody. Things have been a little crazy lately. A little bit vitriolic, I would say, as far as right-wing propaganda against the trans community goes. I know that most of my content lately has been talking about this, but, like, that's a lot of what there is to talk about, is the right wing's overwhelming push against trans rights. Now, one of the most demonic and well-known figures in this push is an individual by the name of Michael Knowles. He's got the demonic Joker smile. Yeah, very, very recognizable. We've looked at it a few times this stream already. Now, Michael Knowles is an employee, one of the soulless, evil, black-hearted ghouls that is paid tens of millions a year by the Daily Wire, as we know from the leaked Steven Crowder contract, to push right-wing lies. It's actually really cool to see where the right-wing, like, propaganda line that the Daily Wire stooges are paid to, uphold, where it, like, moves over time, right? Because a few years ago, it was all about how they just have concerns about young kids getting irreversible, like, gender procedures, and they don't care about, or gender-affirming procedures, and they don't care about hormone blockers, and they don't care about, if they wear a dress or they, go by a different name. It's just if they get, like, top or bottom surgery. The problem was it was always a lie that kids were getting top or bottom surgery, like, at least kids as young as they were saying. That was just their this, like, made-up reality that they could use to sort of fulfill the fears of, reactionaries, and that was their And from there, the conservative line has evolved to be even more aggressively vitriolic towards trans people in particular. So yeah, here's a video of Michael Knowles that's gone a little bit viral on Twitter. It's captioned, "In another chilling rant about the 1.6 million trans Americans, Daily Wire host Michael Knowles says that there can't be a genocide of trans people because, quote-unquote, it's not a legitimate category of being. They're laboring under a delusion, and so we need to correct that delusion." They kind of quoted the clip there, so I don't know why that was necessary, but let's watch the clip itself, because there's some things I have to say about it. I have seen this clip before. I kind of already covered this clip in my snow traveling video segment I put out today, but there's more that has happened and more to add on to this, so we're doing another one.
That I called to ban transgenderism entirely. I made the point that if you want women to have their own bathrooms, if you think women ought to be able to have their own locker rooms.
So he just said he wants to ban transgenderism entirely. I mean, yeah. That's what we've been saying you want to do for so long. Vosh is right, 100%. These people are demons wearing human skin. Maybe these people are all Christians, and they believe in God and, like, demons and stuff. Maybe we should listen to them. Maybe they're right. Maybe they believe in demons because they are demons. Demons are real. Maybe Christianity's real, and these people are the demons. Maybe they're all a bunch of false prophets. That's a thing in the Bible. Those that try to warp God's word to push their own, narratives. For the record, biblically speaking, all these Daily Wire stooges are literally false prophets. They appropriate the word of God to push anti-Christian, like, messaging for their own financial profit. Like, they are literally going to hell. Like, if any of the shit they believe is real, they're going to hell. They're using God's word to profit. They're like, personally, not like, yeah, they're going to hell if any of that shit's real. And, like, not even like one of the higher, less shit rings of hell, but, like, I'm pretty sure defrauding God is, like, you go low. You go to one of the lower rings. Like, that's a whole, yeah, you going deep, bro. They're shoving you deep.
To not have to look at gigantic, gross men while little girls are getting changed. If you want any of those things, you have to ban transgenderism entirely. It's not enough to say, well, you have to wait until you're 12 or whatever people are saying now. It has to be the whole thing, because if men...
Hey, remember earlier on, we were just watching Matt Walsh's villain speech where he says, trans people, you brought this on yourself by trying to force us to join your delusion. If you had just kept to yourselves, we wouldn't care. It's important to know that they are not, like fascism is constantly contradicting itself. One propagandist who's part of the same organization towing the same line, paid to tow the same line, will say, we wouldn't have cared if you just kept to yourselves, while the other one is saying, we need to eradicate these people entirely. They can't be allowed to exist. There can't be trans people, period.
Have the right to behave as women and identify as women for the purposes of public life, then women can't have their own spaces. And we as a society cannot have our own standards and norms, and we're not allowed to live according to reality. We have to live according to the delusions of these troubled people. And I think we, the people, have a right to reality. And I think women have a right to their own spaces. And so that...
It's very tongue-in-cheek how, dishonest the messaging is. Like, we're entitled to a right to reality. These people spent all of, 2014 to 2017 arguing that the facts and the data and the science was on their side on the issue of, trans people. And then the instant you started having people respond to them, wait, actually, all of the major medical institutions in the West believe what we believe. They affirm that sex and gender aren't the same thing. Trans people are valid. The best treatment for gender dysphoria, which is real, is to transition and to be affirmed. Wait, the facts and the data and all that aren't on your side. You're the one arguing from feelings. And they stopped saying facts don't care about your feelings. They started instead saying, actually, these institutions have been infiltrated. Ironically, even the data that existed before they stopped, when they were saying the facts are on their side, even all that data was infiltrated as well. They just didn't know about it yet. They just kind of assumed, I suppose. To be very clear here, these people are liars, they know they're lying, and they know that the vast majority of their audience are not smart enough to do their own research. They'll say, oh, I do my own research, but what their own research is watching a Michael Knowles video.
That means you got to ban the thing entirely. And oh my goodness, what these people say. They said that I was calling for the extermination of transgender people.
Demon. Just a literal fucking demon. I don't really know what else to say other than this person is evil. Just like Matt Walsh is. These people are evil. Look at his face.
They said I was calling for a genocide against... I said, what? I must have missed that part.
Here's my favorite part. Here's the best part of the video, guys. Hey, look at this smile, guys. This shot needs to be the thumbnail. Look at that snaggle-tooth demon grin. That's literally the smile that, Vivzy Pop would draw for, a demon. With the snaggle teeth and the very toothy big grin. Literally a Vivzy Pop demon design. Hold on, I have an example. I feel like this character. This is Matt Walsh's smile. This is the smile that he makes, that he gives to the camera as he knowingly lies about, as he says he wants to genocide trans people, and then says, these people are so triggered about me. They think I want to genocide them. You know, oh god, Lol Zan is stoned. I am quite stoned, that is true. But listen, you guys got me going late on this one. I gotta be a little high for it.
I said, what? I must have missed that part of my show.
Guys, you're literally having me respond to, borderline, poorly written supervillains who are literally megalomaniac multimillionaires giving their villain speeches to the downtrodden minority that they're endlessly trying to milk as much money off of spreading hate against, and supporting the legislation against. Like, we're literally talking about people who would be poorly written supervillains in a comic. I gotta be stoned for this shit, alright? One thing you have to remember as well is that, as I've said a billion times, upsetting or offending or being cruel to lefties or minorities is a conservative virtue. So if I get mad at any of this, like, deliberate, like, evil behavior, they win. You know? Like, if you get mad, if you get triggered, they win. So you gotta stay chill. You gotta be able to look at them giving their evil speech and keep your cool, because they want you to get mad. It's why they're so smug. It's the same. It's like a much more, like, exacerbated version of or exaggerated version of how Sargon would do his smuckle, his, like, smug chuckle when he's, like, super wrong in like a debate or talking about something. He'd be like, yes, feminism does nothing but destroy, with his fake British accent that he does. It's that same kind of, like, it's meant to upset good people. Like, it's a bad person who is being smug about doing evil, and that's meant to upset good people. It's why very often, like, villains in media are smug as they're doing, like, bad things. It's because it's meant to upset you. And from the perspective of conservatives, it's just like, haha, trigger those lefties. But from the perspective of lefty, it's like, oh my god, I can't believe you're so evil. You're literally inhumanly evil. But the audience is like, haha, triggered. See, you gotta keep your cool.
No, when did I say that? I don't know how you could have a genocide of transgender people.
I want to be clear that if it ever seems like I go over the top with my accusations that these people are child raping demons, I want to be clear. These people fucking started it, okay? And to be fair, our accusation that these people are child raping demons have far more merit to them than any accusation these people have that the left are, like, destroying the West with a groomer agenda, turning kids trans. Because I'll tell you, there's a lot more evidence for one than the other. The literal, like, do you think he meant to do the quotes? I think he was thinking the quotes, but he didn't mean to do them, and that's why he did them so low and, like, you can notice he tried to stop himself, right?
I don't know how you could have a genocide of transgender people.
You'd see, like, he like quickly stops and puts his hands down. Like, he goes for the full, like, quotes, but stops and realizes, like, oh shit, I shouldn't air quote people because I'm saying they're not people. Like, but he means that. It was a slip of his actual, it was a mask slip. They will be saying this, like, in the future, that trans people aren't people. But that's not quite where we're at yet with the narrative. They need to do a bit more dehumanizing first. That's what this all is, by the way. It's sort of like a softening up, right? They've spent years now dehumanizing trans people by using this groomer rhetoric, this, like, whether it be mocking and just making fun of, like, haha, look at this TikTok trans person who's got purple hair and a beard. Like, whether it be mocking over literally nothing other than maybe a unconventional appearance, misrepresentations and slandering, calling trans people and LGBT people, like, pedophiles and not bigots, and groomers. All of this has been basically softening people up to be more open to more vitriolic, openly hateful rhetoric. That's why it's gone from such dog whistly hate for trans people, where you kind of have to cut through a little bit of the grass to get to the, like, where it's bigoted against trans people, why it's problematic, to now, like, the largest conservative figures just calling trans people pedophiles. and like implying you should go out and do something about it. Making excuses for bomb threats on children's hospitals made by their fans. Like, that's where we're at. And it took a long time of softening up their audience to this and the general conservative base.
Because genocide refers to genes. It refers to genetics. It refers to biology. And the whole point of transgenderism is that it has nothing to do with biology. That's what the transgender activists say. They say, forget about biology.
Well, no, you're strawmanning, obviously. This guy's strawmanning, obviously, because he's a demon. But also, that is not what being trans is about. But what the actual scientists and medical professionals say is that sex and gender are different things, and that your gender is assigned to you typically when you're born based on your sex. And that if you get older and you like old enough that you like can start to realize what a boy and a girl is, and you can talk and you can be interested in things, and you start to realize that your gender assigned at birth is not congruous with how you feel, then you can start to change your gender identity. And if you feel dysphoria about your physical body, you can also treat that with like sexual gender or sexual reaffirming surgeries, right? Things like hormones and maybe hormone blockers if you're underage, right? Things like bottom surgery, top surgery, phalloplasty, facial feminization surgery. I bet there's facial masculinization surgery. I bet there's definitely that. I know they do surgeries. I think they do surgeries for trans dudes to have deeper voices, right? It's like a vocal cord surgery, right? That's a thing too. I'm pretty sure. T lowers your voice. Yeah, well, it's obviously not necessary, that surgery usually, but it exists. Like the voice lowering surgery. That's a thing.
Biological sex. My gender expression doesn't have to have anything to do with my biological sex. Okay, well then there can't be a genocide.
He knows this, but like Jewish people that the Nazis persecuted were also religiously Jewish. Like they adopted Judaism, and for that were killed during the Holocaust. I'm pretty sure they were genocide. I mean, Michael Knowles agrees with the Holocaust. I mean, he likes the Holocaust. He thinks it was good, because he's a Nazi. But like, I feel like, to you guys, you should be able to put this together. His logic is that you can't genocide a group of people unless the genocide is based on an immutable trait. Religion is not an immutable trait. One of the biggest genocides in history was based on a mix of ethnicity and religion. Also, gender identity is even more entwined with who you are, and this is like empirically true, than religion. Your gender identity is like it's you. It's like one of the like core things that makes you is your gender identity. Like, it's pretty high up on the list of traits that make you who you are.
That refers to genetics. But furthermore, nobody's calling to exterminate anybody, because the other problem with that statement is that transgender people is not a real ontological category. It's not a legitimate category of being. There are people who think that they're the wrong sex, but they're mistaken. They're laboring under...
Dude, just admit it. Oh, he'll admit it in the future. Once it becomes like politically advantageous to, they will just admit it. Right now, the money is in edging. They're edging right now. That is where the money is right now, to basically edge right to the point of like telling people to kill trans people, like right on the edge. That is where they're going to probably teeter for a while until they can move it forward. They announced at the beginning of last year that the Daily Wire's goal going into the next couple years would be waging hardcore war on trans people. So yeah, let's finish the clip.
Under a delusion. And so we need to correct that delusion.
So yeah, what they mean by correct that delusion is camps, like conversion therapy camps. The same thing they tried to do with gay people. And both with gay people and trans people, it has been tried. All of the science and data shows that it does not work. It is simply ineffective torture. They just want to torture trans and gay people. It does not work. It does not have, there's no amount of therapy or conversion therapy or which is torture, conversion torture, or anything like that that makes trans people not trans or gay people not gay. All you can do is introduce, basically one of the most common types of conversion therapy is like a shock or some negative painful stimulus in response to arousal at the site of, say, for example, any gay material. Or, for example, if you have like a trans person, anytime they do something, like let's say you have a trans woman, anytime they do something feminine, you would introduce pain. Or you would try to, on the more light side of things, you would try to like debate them out of being trans. Like you would try to therapy them out of being trans. This has been heavily tested, heavily tried. Believe me, they tried this for a long time, way before they ever tried acquiescing to the requests of trans people and letting them transition. I assure you, medical science tried everything there was as an option before they got to, okay, let's actually let them like change their gender and get surgeries. And like they tried everything. Nothing else worked, all right? Michael Knowles knows this. I'm sure he has at least skimmed the data and the studies on this, even though he's not paid to. I'm sure out of some morbid curiosity, he's actually done some research and seen the truth on these situations. I mean, you have to know the truth to lie more effectively, so I'm sure he knows these things. And then, of course, following this, shortly after, he went to CPAC and gave this short, bit of a speech. This clip is also captioned on the tweet with the following: Michael Knowles is openly calling for genocide against trans people at CPAC. So yeah, we got more Michael Knowles genocide rhetoric.
There can be no middle way in dealing with transgenderism. It is all or nothing. If transgenderism is true, if men really can become women, then it's true for everybody of all ages. If transgenderism is false...
Yeah. Well, yeah. That is true. But, like, the policies and regulations around keeping kids from accessing gender-affirming care are precautions set up by over-cautious and reactionary people. We don't have this level of scrutiny for basically any other medical treatment for anything, even for kids. We give kids spinal taps. Like you can literally be 6 years old and sign a consent form to donate bone marrow. You know that, right? That kids can donate bone marrow? Oh wait, at least 18 to donate is a medical procedure. Okay, no, you do have to be 18. Never mind. My bad. Regardless, they do implant bone marrow into patients that are underage. You may have to be 18 or older to give bone marrow, but you do not have to be 18 or older to receive a bone marrow transplant. And we don't freak the fuck out about the extremely, extremely, extremely painful process that is a bone marrow transplant. Hold on, let me... Bone marrow transplant description. You will not hear conservatives talking about this in the same way they talk about trans-affirming surgeries, despite the fact these surgeries and procedures have been overwhelmingly demonstrated with extremely low regret rates to be the solution to gender dysphoria. Bone marrow transplant is a special therapy for patients with certain cancers or other diseases. A bone marrow transplant involves taking cells that are normally found in the bone marrow, stem cells, filtering those cells, and giving them back either to the donor, patient, or to another person. This requires sticking a thick, long needle into the bone and extracting bone marrow. It is one of the most painful procedures that you can receive, medically speaking. And receiving it is not much less painful. They give this procedure to children to save their lives. People don't freak out about this shit. It's just that the concept of medically treating, and yes, this is more of a trans-medicalist perspective on trans people, but that's the argument he's making, right? Like you kind of have like the frustration I have with trans-medicalists is that they make it so hard to engage with people on like the surface level of like transgender like stuff, right? Like the trans medicalist arguments and perspective are a very good in to like understanding the trans stuff. Like I'm just going to call it the trans stuff, but it's not all encompassing. It's far from all encompassing, and people will like learn the trans medicalist perspective and end it there. They assume that's the end of it. Everything else is crazy, delusional, Tumblrite, Twitter lefty, deranged, whatever, right? And they'll just turn their brains off, and that's very frustrating to me. But just having a conversation about like the medical side of being trans, like the gender dysphoria, the hormones, the affirmation of gender identity as a treatment for gender dysphoria, I think this is a good conversation to have, because it is one of the strongest arguments for the validity and affirmation for the vast majority of trans people. There's a lot more arguments to go from there and a lot more to learn from there, but it's a very good in. It's very inarguable, very empirical, very well researched, backed up, and like you can just dump piles of studies and academic research on somebody and or just a few meta-analyses that help to condense all of that into a more digestible form onto somebody if they're like genuinely interested in learning the facts and the science and the data. Like they're not just some asshole who wants to act like they care about the truth but is really just kind of an ideologue. Or a douchebag edgelord. Like if they actually care, you can provide them with that data, and they can within a very reasonable amount of time be like, oh, okay, I get it. These are not honest people. These are people who just take their favorite demagogue's word for it and run with it.
As it is, if men really can't become women, as they cannot, then it's false for everybody too. And if it's false, then we should not indulge it.
I like the
Especially
smug
since
smile.
that indulgence requires taking away the rights and customs
It's so comically evil. I love it so much.
of so many people. If it is false, then for the good of society, and especially for the good of the poor people who have fallen prey to this confusion, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely. The whole preposterous ideology at every level.
The only like logical conclusion to that, of course, is you have to exterminate trans people. But of course, he's going to get hyper offended when people point that out, because calling out dog whistles is, like the dog whistles are dog whistles for a reason. A little aside, very quickly, I do want to say, I just thought I'd point this little tweet out. I like this tweet a lot. Guy who wants to eradicate transgender people off the face of this earth spotted in 4K partying with drag queens. A Star is Born, Lady MAGA. Listen, guys. All I'm saying is every stereotype that we lefties say about these like hyper transphobic conservative types is true. All right. Next, Rolling Stone put out an article saying CPAC speaker calls for transgender people to be eradicated. "Quote unquote, for the good of society, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life entirely," far-right conservative Michael Knowles said, drawing raucous applause. And Michael Knowles quote tweets this saying, "This headline is libelous and I demand a retraction." It is not libelous. That is basically exactly what he said. So yeah, no, it's not. Here's Vosh's reply. "I am calling for the complete eradication of Michael Knowlesism from public life." Yeah, it's a very clear dog whistle, and Michael Knowles is like he's mad that his dog whistle is being called out by large public outlets, and he's trying to like scare the outlets into retracting with lawsuits. Remember, these companies and these figures are backed by massive, huge dark money groups, like really dark money, like large amounts of it as well. We're talking offering Steven Crowder a $50 million contract money, okay? Like, that was not a significant amount of Daily Wire's money, or wherever the Daily Wire gets its money's source at all. It would have been a big investment, I'm sure, but not even close to their total, like, pool or value or worth. So, like, this is big money we're talking about. And so, like, the threat of a lawsuit is very much, even if it's a slap suit, very much a threat. And part of the way the right does things. We also got this Euphoria Tory tweet that says, absolutely based Rolling Stone calling this out. They did not take it back. CPAC speaker calls for eradication of transgenderism and somehow claims he's not calling for elimination of transgender people. There is no separating a ban on transgenderism from an attack on transgender people, says activist Aaron Reed. Based. They are one and the same, and there's no separation between them. Yeah, like, there's just, they're not... I do wonder if the level of mask off the right has gotten as of late marks the beginning of the end for them. Think back to Gamergate. Gamergate was at its most... Like, the Gamergate movement, the people, the conservatives that were pushing it, they were at their most credible, popular, well-liked, and unanimously watched when there was the biggest veil between them and the far right. When it was just them dunking on, like, crazy feminist videos was when it was the most popular. When it started to get more esoteric, and when it started to get more, like, hard right conservative and mask off, when you started to have the more popular figures among them get outed as Nazis and race realists, that's when it really all started to fall apart. And of course the infighting, didn't help them, and YouTube kind of changed some things with their algorithm. It was a lot of things that happened that fucked over the right. But it makes me wonder if the level of mask off that the conservatives have been going these days is them basically reaching their peak, but essentially an omen for them at least, that there's nothing but a downhill trajectory ahead of them. You can't go up from your peak. Because PragerU even is kind of falling off. Like, even their videos aren't getting as many views, and their ads are running less, and they're kind of, like, consolidating off of YouTube. Daily Wire could go the way of PragerU and fall the fuck off within the next less than a decade, if it goes the same trajectory things went during Gamergate. I'm not saying they will, I'm just saying that's how things have went in the past because of this same reason. And I wonder if history is going to repeat itself in the same way it has up to this point. I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think. Comment down below what your thoughts are. Like and subscribe and ring the bell icon if you want to see more from me and you enjoyed this video. And of course, make sure to follow my social medias, all linked down below in the description if you want to see more from me off YouTube. And yeah, regardless of how you support me, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good one.